When we walk through a museum, we see rows of beautiful ancient statues. They are often made of pure white marble. We look at the faces of gods and goddesses, emperors and athletes. Their forms are perfect and their stone is smooth and pale. We have come to believe that this is how they always looked. This idea of classical whiteness has shaped our own art and architecture for centuries. We think of ancient Greece and Rome as a world of elegant, simple white stone. It feels calm, serious, and very dignified. This image is powerful, but it is not the complete story. This vision of a white classical world is, in fact, a great misunderstanding. It is a myth that began a long time ago. During the Renaissance, artists and scholars in Europe rediscovered these ancient works of art. They dug them up from the ground where they had been buried for hundreds of years. By then, the bright, vibrant colors that once covered them had almost completely disappeared. The wind, the rain, and the earth had washed them clean, leaving only the bare stone behind. The people who found them thought this pale look was the original intended style. They saw it as a symbol of pure, rational beauty. This mistaken idea became incredibly popular. Artists like Michelangelo were inspired by these seemingly plain white statues. They created their own masterpieces in unpainted marble, trying to capture that same classical spirit. This new tradition spread across Europe and beyond. Soon, everyone believed that the ancient Greeks and Romans preferred their sculptures to be simple and unadorned. The idea of color was seen as messy or even barbaric. The whiteness became associated with high culture, intellectual thought, and the very foundations of Western civilization, creating a powerful but ultimately false picture of the past. But imagine standing in an ancient city like Athens or Rome 2,000 years ago. The temples and public squares would have been an explosion of color. The statues that lined the streets and filled the sacred spaces were not pale ghosts. They were painted in bold, brilliant hues. Their hair might have been golden, their eyes a startling blue or brown, and their clothes decorated with intricate patterns of red, green, and purple. These were not just objects of quiet contemplation. They were designed to look alive, to catch the eye, and to tell vivid stories to everyone who saw them. So what happened to all that color? Why did a world teeming with vibrant art become a world of white marble in our minds? The answer lies in the simple passage of time. For more than 1,000 years, these statues were exposed to the elements. They were buried under soil, submerged in water, or left standing in the open air. The gentle but persistent forces of nature worked away at their surfaces. Rain washed away the pigments, sunlight bleached them, and the wind wore them down. The delicate layers of paint were made from natural materials, which could not last forever. The paints used by ancient artists were organic. They were made from ground-up minerals, plants, and even crushed insects. These materials were mixed with a binder, like egg yolk or beeswax, to help them stick to the marble. While effective, these paints were not as durable as modern chemical paints. Over centuries, the binders broke down, and the colorful pigments flaked off or dissolved. What remained was the pristine, resilient marble underneath. So when these statues were rediscovered, they looked like they had been scrubbed clean by time itself, leaving only their ghostly white forms behind. The people of the Renaissance who found these statues had no reason to think they were once painted. They saw beauty in the pure form of the sculpture itself. They admired the skill of the carver and the quality of the stone. This appreciation for the unpainted marble created a powerful artistic movement. They copied this style, believing they were being true to the ancients. This new classical style was then passed down through generations. Art academies taught it, collectors demanded it, and museums displayed it. The myth of white marble became an accepted truth. Even when small traces of color were found on some statues, they were often ignored or even cleaned off. Curators and collectors in the 18th and 19th centuries sometimes scrubbed their statues to make them look more perfectly white. They believed they were restoring the artworks to their original glory. In reality, they were erasing the last precious clues to their true appearance. This process cemented the image of a colorless classical world in the public imagination. It was a beautiful idea, but it was based on centuries of slow decay and accidental destruction. For decades, the idea of colorful statues was just a whisper among a few curious scholars. But in recent times, science has given us new eyes to see the past. Modern technology allows us to find clues that are completely invisible to the naked eye. Archaeologists and conservation scientists now use a range of high-tech tools to examine the surfaces of these ancient sculptures. They are like detectives, hunting for microscopic evidence of a long-lost world of color. Their work is a painstaking process of discovery, revealing secrets hidden in plain sight. One of the most important techniques is using different kinds of light. Scientists shine ultraviolet and infrared light onto the statues. These wavelengths can make the faint chemical residues of ancient pigments glow. Under this special light, areas that look like plain white marble can suddenly reveal the ghostly outlines of painted patterns. It is a magical moment when a hidden design appears after being invisible for 2 millennia. They can also use X-rays and other scanning methods to identify the specific minerals used to make the paints, telling us exactly which colors were used. Through this scientific investigation, we have discovered the incredible palette of the ancient world. An amazing amount of detail has been uncovered. For example, we now know that one statue of the Emperor Augustus, the famous Augustus of Prima Porta, was painted in stunningly bold colors. His tunic was a deep crimson red, and his armor was decorated with a rich tapestry of reds, blues, and yellows. We have found statues with hair painted a reddish-blonde color using a pigment called goethite. Others had lips colored with red ochre and eyes detailed with inlaid glass or colored stone. Even more surprisingly, the discoveries go beyond just color. Research has revealed that some statues were also scented. Traces of aromatic oils, resins, and plant extracts have been found on certain sculptures, particularly those used in religious rituals. Imagine a statue of a goddess like Aphrodite, not only being beautifully painted, but also smelling of roses or myrrh. These scents would have made the experience of encountering the statue even more immersive and powerful. It was a truly multi-sensory art form, designed to engage sight, touch, and smell. These discoveries are completely changing our understanding of the ancient world. The classical world was not a serene, intellectual place of pure white forms. It was a noisy, vibrant, and deeply human place full of life and color. Knowing that statues were painted helps us to connect more directly with the people who made and saw them. These were not just cold, distant objects of art. They were active parts of daily life. They looked like real people, dressed in the bright clothes of the time, and they were meant to provoke strong emotions. This new knowledge helps us to understand the purpose of these statues better. A brightly painted statue of a god would have seemed more present and powerful to a worshipper in a temple. The realistic colors would have made the myths and stories they represented feel more immediate and true. A painted portrait of an emperor would have been a more commanding and lifelike symbol of his authority. Color was a tool for communication. It made the statues more accessible and understandable to everyone, not just the educated elite. It brought them to life. Realizing that the ancient world was colorful also challenges some of our own cultural biases. The idea of white marble as the peak of beauty has sometimes been linked to troubling ideas about race and cultural superiority. By embracing the colorful reality of the past, we get a more accurate and inclusive picture of history. We learn that tastes and styles change over time. The ancients had their own sense of beauty, and it was one filled with bold expression and decoration. It reminds us that there is not just one way to create great art. Ultimately, remembering the true look and feel of these ancient sculptures is incredibly important. It allows us to appreciate them as their creators intended. It peels back centuries of misunderstanding and brings us a step closer to the real people of ancient Greece and Rome. When we look at a statue now, we can try to imagine it covered in brilliant paint and perhaps even carrying a faint scent. We can see it not as a pale relic, but as a vibrant messenger from a lively and colorful past. This new vision makes history feel more alive, more exciting, and more real than ever before.